Good morning. It's time for me to give an art update. But first, let me mention a few words about the book I'm reading, Cartooning, by Mort Gerberg. I'm still reading the chapter of Where Do You Get Your Ideas? And it's very interesting to see the thought process of different artists. Now, these tend to be artists who do magazine cartoons, think the New Yorker, single panel cartoons. But it is still fascinating to see the way that people tell a whole story with a single panel, sometimes with only a single line of dialogue. As interesting as that is, there's really not a lot that I can say about that. So let's look at the next of the 100 best comics of the century as chosen by some guy. So let's see. Today, we have a cartoon by Roland Wilson. Roland Wilson had his first collection of cartoons published in 1963. He has won Clio Awards, and several European awards for his work in advertising. So here we see some nice pen and ink work. You can see the ink wash. Alright, we have the executioners, the arrows. To ease your conscience, as a firing squad, one of the arrows will be blank. Alright. So obviously we have a juxtaposition of modern day to sort of a kind of a Hollywood idealized version of the past. This is something we might see in an Errol Flynn film, maybe a Robin Hood film of the 1930s or 40s. And we actually can see, if you look very closely, you can see the blank arrow is a suction cup arrow, like a toy. And I think the composition sort of speaks for itself. Reprinted by special permission of Playboy magazine, copyright 1977. Now that in itself is very telling. People forget that there was a time in the 60s and 70s when Playboy magazine was actually a showcase, not just for dirty pictures, but for countercultural cartoons and literature. Perhaps the most famous being Fahrenheit 451. Ray Bradbury could not find a conventional publisher, and now that book is a classic about the dangers of censorship. Censorship has always been a problem with comics. Comics have straddled the line between being a middle-class preoccupation and being countercultural. We see that all the way in the beginning, with the feud between Hearst and Pulitzer, when people were trying to define what the counterculture is, and we saw that in generations that followed. Think of all of the comics that were censored, either by the syndicate, or by the government, or by busybodies, or kind of combinations. Lil Abner, Pogo, Doonesbury, The Far Side, those are the newspaper versions. Comic book versions had even more censorship. I'm sure many of us are familiar with the comic code, with the seduction of the innocent, and how in the 1950s the American government had actual book burnings for comic books and other dangerous materials. If you're wondering why certain comic books sell for such high prices, well, they were printed on very cheap pulp paper for a long time, and they were not especially cared for by their owners, who were mostly children, but also many of them were burned by the government, because comics are naughty. Anyway, as for my art progress, yesterday I finished another strip. And now I am in an interesting position. I'm making these strips for my nieces and nephews, and I'm making one for every day they're at school, and I'm 6 weeks ahead of them. Well, it looks like 6 weeks from today, they have a day off. So today I will not be making another strip. Instead, I'll be working in this sketchbook. This is the monochrome sketchbook. So today I will finish inking in this page, and then I will pencil and ink the next page. And that will be quite a task, but I already have a pretty good idea of how that will look. And I hope I will have some time to paint 1 or 2 pages, maybe in this little sketchbook. There are about 40 pages left in here, so I've done around 60 or 70 pages. So we are past the halfway mark. I'm hoping to have this finished by August, maybe by the last week of August. And then in early September, I'll take some time and just work on paintings for the State Fair. The whole point of this book was to warm me up to do some paintings for the State Fair. So perhaps it will do its job. You know, a lot of cartooning is preparation for other cartooning. That's what we keep sketchbooks. That's why we practice with different material and the like. Alright, well, I will talk to you later with another art update. Goodbye.